I never thought the worst rejection of my life would lead me to the greatest love I'd ever know. But when a 5-year-old girl with tears in her eyes tugged on my sleeve and whispered those 6 words, "Can you be my new mom?" everything I believed about heartbreak, second chances, and what makes a family began to shift in ways I couldn't have imagined. This is the story of how a disastrous Christmas blind date, a heartbroken little girl, and a piano playing in the corner of an upscale restaurant changed my entire world. My name is Claire Thompson, and at 29 I'd convinced myself I was done with romance. Not in a bitter way exactly, more like a self-protective way, because a year and a half earlier my fiancé, a man I'd planned an entire future with, had called off our engagement 3 weeks before the wedding. His reason? He wasn't ready. He needed to find himself. He loved me, but he wasn't in love with me. Pick your cliché. The result was the same. I was left with a cancelled venue, returned gifts, and a heart that felt like shattered glass. I threw myself into work. As an event planner, I was good at creating perfect moments for other people. Weddings, corporate galas, milestone birthdays. I could orchestrate joy with my eyes closed. My own happiness, that was a different story. I'd built walls so high that even I couldn't see over them anymore. So, when my best friend Emma, yes, we share the same name, which caused endless confusion, when my Emma insisted I go on a blind date Christmas Eve, I laughed in her face. But she was persistent. She'd set it up with a colleague's friend, a successful lawyer, handsome, charming, available. "What did I have to lose?" she asked. "Just one dinner, just one night. Give yourself permission to try again." Against every instinct, I said yes. I spent an embarrassing amount of time getting ready that evening. I told myself I didn't care, but the pile of rejected outfits on my bed suggested otherwise. I finally settled on a deep green dress that Emma said made my eyes look incredible. I curled my hair. I even wore the heels that hurt after 20 minutes. As I drove to the restaurant, my hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. The radio played Christmas carols, and the streets glowed with holiday lights. Couples walked hand in hand past shop windows. Families bundled in scarves carried wrapped presents. The whole world seemed to be celebrating something I'd lost faith in. The restaurant was called the Ivy Room, an upscale establishment in the heart of downtown. The kind of place with white tablecloths and candles on every table. Through the windows I could see a massive Christmas tree in the corner, decorated with gold and silver ornaments that caught the light. My breath fogged in the cold air as I stood outside, gathering courage. "You can do this," I told myself. "It's just dinner. 2 hours maximum. Then you can go home, change into your pajamas, and eat the emergency chocolate you keep in your freezer." I walked inside. The warmth hit me immediately, along with the scent of evergreen and something delicious cooking in the kitchen. A hostess greeted me with a professional smile. I gave her the name of my date, Derek Walsh, and she led me through the dining room to a table near the back. And there he was. Derek stood as I approached, and I had to admit Emma's colleague hadn't lied. He was handsome in that polished, professional way. Dark hair, perfectly styled. Designer suit. A smile that probably worked on everyone. He held out his hand, and we shook. His grip was firm, confident. Maybe too confident. The first 15 minutes weren't terrible. We covered the basics. Where we grew up, what we did for work, favorite movies, safe territory. Derek seemed charming enough, though something about the way he talked made me feel like he was conducting an interview rather than having a conversation. Then, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something shifted in his expression. He held up one finger just a minute and answered. I watched his face change as he listened to whoever was on the other end. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. I heard him say a name, Jessica, his ex-girlfriend, I would later learn. The call lasted 3 minutes. 3 long, awkward minutes, where I sat alone at the table studying the menu I'd already memorized, pretending not to notice the curious glances from nearby diners. When Derek finally hung up, he didn't apologize. Instead, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Then he said the words that would echo in my head for hours afterward. "Look, Claire, you seem like a nice person, but I'm going to be honest with you. This isn't going to work." I blinked. "I'm sorry. You're too serious, too focused. I can tell just from talking to you. You probably have a 5-year plan and a spreadsheet for your grocery shopping. That was my ex on the phone, and honestly, talking to her for 3 minutes was more exciting than this entire conversation." The words hit like a slap. I felt my face flush hot, then cold. Around us, the restaurant buzzed with laughter and conversation, but all I could hear was the rushing in my ears. Derek stood up, straightening his jacket. "I'm going to head out. You seem like you'll be fine. Merry Christmas." And just like that, he walked away. Left me sitting alone at a table set for 2 with curious eyes watching from every direction. The waiter approached hesitantly, asking if everything was all right. I nodded, unable to speak. I managed to whisper that I just needed a moment. My hands shook as I reached for my water glass. I felt humiliated, rejected. Again. Different circumstances than my broken engagement, but the same crushing feeling of not being enough. Too serious, too boring, too much of the wrong things and not enough of whatever it was that made someone want to stay. I should have left right then, called Emma, gone home. But something kept me in that chair. Maybe it was stubborn pride. Maybe I didn't want to give Derek the satisfaction of chasing me away from a beautiful restaurant on Christmas Eve. So I sat there, blinking back tears, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. And that's when I heard it. The piano. At first it was just background music, something classical and beautiful floating through the restaurant. But as I focused on it, really listened, I realized it wasn't a recording. Someone was actually playing. Live. Right here. I turned my head, searching for the source. And that's when I saw him. In the far corner of the restaurant, near the Christmas tree, sat a grand piano I hadn't noticed before. And at the piano was a man. Even from across the room, I could tell he was striking. Dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead. Strong hands moving across the keys with practiced ease. He wore a simple sweater and dark jeans. Nothing fancy. But there was something about the way he held himself. Confident without being arrogant. Present without demanding attention. And beside the piano on a small bench sat a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6. She had light brown hair pulled into 2 pigtails, and she wore a red velvet dress with white tights. She swung her legs back and forth, watching her father play with an expression of pure adoration. The piece he was playing, I recognized it after a moment. "Oh, Holy Night," but not the version you hear in shopping malls. This was slower, more contemplative. Each note seemed to carry weight, emotion. Like he was playing not just for the restaurant, but for that little girl beside him. For himself. Maybe for everyone who'd ever felt the particular ache that comes with this season. I found myself transfixed. The humiliation of moments before didn't disappear, but it receded. Became smaller, less consuming. Because here was something beautiful happening in real time, and I was lucky enough to witness it. The man's eyes were closed as he played. His daughter reached out and touched his arm gently, and he smiled without opening his eyes, without missing a single note. It was such a tender gesture, so full of love and trust. The kind of moment that makes you believe in goodness even when everything else feels broken. Other diners had noticed too. Conversations had quieted. Heads had turned. Everyone in the restaurant seemed to be holding their breath, caught in the spell of this impromptu performance. When the final notes faded, there was a beat of silence. Then applause erupted throughout the room. The man opened his eyes, looking slightly surprised, as if he'd forgotten there was anyone else there. He gave a small, humble nod. His daughter beamed up at him, clapping her small hands together. I realized I was crying. Not from sadness anymore, but from something else. Something I couldn't quite name. Beauty, maybe. Or the recognition of love in its purest form. Or just the release of tension I'd been carrying for so long. I watched as the man said something to his daughter. She nodded eagerly, then slipped off the bench and skipped toward what I assumed was the restroom, her pigtails bouncing. And that's when everything changed. The little girl didn't go to the restroom. Instead, she stopped, right beside my table. I didn't notice at first, lost in my own thoughts. But then I heard a small voice. "Are you sad too?" I looked up, startled. The girl from the piano stood there, her head tilted to one side, studying me with wide, serious eyes. They were hazel, I noticed, flecked with gold in the candlelight. "I'm sorry," I managed. "You're crying," she said matter-of-factly. "I cry sometimes too, when I miss my mommy." My heart stuttered. I quickly wiped at my cheeks, trying to compose myself. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Just having a bit of a rough night." She nodded solemnly, as if she understood completely. Then, without invitation, she climbed onto the chair across from me, the one Derek had abandoned. She folded her small hands on the table, mimicking the posture of a much older person. "My daddy says it's okay to be sad sometimes," she informed me. "He says feelings are meant to be felt, not hidden. That's what my mommy used to say too before she went to heaven." Oh no. This child had lost her mother. The piano playing made even more sense now. A father trying to create beauty for his daughter during what must be an impossibly painful season. "Your daddy sounds very wise," I said softly. "And I'm sure your mommy was too." "She was the best mommy in the whole world," the girl said, and the simple conviction in her voice made my throat tight. "But now it's just me and Daddy. He tries really hard, but he gets sad too, especially at Christmas." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "That must be really hard." She shrugged, a gesture too world-weary for such small shoulders. "It's okay. Daddy says we have each other, but sometimes I wish." She trailed off, biting her lower lip. "What do you wish?" Those hazel eyes met mine, and I saw something ancient and aching in them, something no child should have to feel. "I wish I had a mommy again," she said quietly. "Someone who could braid my hair the right way, and read me stories with different voices, and tell Daddy it's okay to not be sad all the time." My heart was breaking, absolutely shattering, for this little girl, for her father, for the ghost of a mother who should be here, but wasn't. The girl studied me for a long moment. Then she leaned forward as if sharing a secret. "You seem nice," she whispered. "And pretty. And you look like you give good hugs." I laughed despite myself. "Thank you. That might be the nicest thing anyone's said to me in a while." "So I was thinking." She paused, gathering courage. "Can you be my new mom?" Time stopped. The restaurant, the other diners, the Christmas music playing softly in the background, all of it faded away. There was only this child looking at me with desperate hope, asking a question that was both heartbreaking and impossibly sweet. Sweetheart, I didn't know what to say. How do you answer something like that? How do you explain to a grieving child that the world doesn't work that way, that you can't just ask a stranger in a restaurant to be your mother no matter how much you might wish it were that simple? "Emma?" A man's voice, urgent and slightly panicked. I looked up to see the pianist rushing toward our table. Up close, he was even more striking. Late 30s maybe. Strong jawline. Tired eyes that held a kind of sad kindness. He reached our table and immediately placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Emma, you can't just run off like that. And you definitely can't." He looked at me, and I saw the moment recognition hit. Not of me personally, but of the situation. The tears still wet on my cheeks, the empty chair across from me, the whole sorry picture. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. Did she ask you to? She's been doing this lately. I'm so sorry." "It's okay," I said quickly, though my voice shook. "She's been lovely. We were just talking." The man, Emma's father, crouched down to his daughter's level. "Em, we talked about this, remember? You can't just ask people to be your mom. That's not how it works." "But Daddy, you said Christmas is when miracles happen. And she looks so nice. And she's sad like us. Maybe we could all be sad together and then maybe we'd be happy." The simple logic of a child. The gut-wrenching hope. I watched this man's face crumble and rebuild itself in the span of seconds. He pulled his daughter into a hug, and I heard him whisper, "Oh, baby, my sweet baby girl." When he looked up at me again, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I really am so sorry. We lost my wife 2 years ago, and it's been hard, especially during the holidays. I shouldn't have brought her here tonight. I just thought maybe the piano, the music, it might help her feel close to her mom. She used to love listening to me play." "Please don't apologize," I said. And I meant it. Your daughter is incredible, and your playing was beautiful. Honestly, you both made a really terrible night significantly better." He studied me for a moment, really seeing me. Then he glanced at the empty chair, at my untouched menu, at the mascara I could feel smudged under my eyes. "Rough night?" he asked gently. "Catastrophic blind date?" I admitted. He took a phone call from his ex, and then informed me I was too boring to waste his time on. So he left. About 15 minutes ago. What an absolute idiot, the man said with such conviction that I actually smiled. That's what I've been telling myself. Emma was looking between us, her expression calculating in that way kids have. "Daddy, maybe she could sit with us, so she doesn't have to be alone, and so we don't have to be alone either." The man looked at me apologetic, but also, I thought, hopeful. "You absolutely don't have to. I'm sure you'd rather just get out of here. But if you wanted to, we were just going to have dinner. Nothing fancy." Emma wanted spaghetti, which apparently this restaurant makes, even though it's not exactly on the menu. "We'd be happy to have you join us. No pressure. No expectations. Just not being alone on Christmas Eve." I should have said no. Should have thanked them, politely paid for my water and left. Gone home to my safe, lonely apartment where nobody could reject me or ask me impossible questions or make me feel things I'd worked so hard not to feel. Instead, I heard myself say, "Spaghetti sounds perfect." Emma's face lit up like the Christmas tree in the corner. Her father looked relieved and surprised in equal measure. He stood offering his hand properly this time. "Nathan Cross," he said. "And you've already met my daughter Emma, who apparently has no sense of boundaries whatsoever." "I like her," Emma announced. "She has a nice smile." "Claire Thompson," I said, shaking his hand. His grip was warm, solid. Nothing like Derek's performative handshake, and I like her too. She's very honest. Brutally, Nathan agreed, but his tone was fond. He signaled to a waiter who quickly helped us relocate to Nathan's table near the piano. It was larger, more comfortable, with a better view of the Christmas tree. As we settled in, Emma immediately scooted her chair closer to mine. She pulled a small sketchbook from a bag I hadn't noticed before and opened it to show me her drawings. They were the kind of art you'd expect from a 5-year-old, all stick figures and bright colors. But there was also something poignant about them. Many featured 3 people, 2 tall, 1 small, a family. "This is me, and Daddy, and Mommy," she explained, pointing to one drawing. "I made this before Mommy got sick." "It's beautiful," I said truthfully. "Your mommy looks happy in this picture." "She was always happy when we were together," Emma said simply. "Daddy says she's still with us, just in a different way. Like when you can feel the sun, even when it's behind clouds." I glanced at Nathan, who was watching his daughter with an expression of such tender pain that I had to look away. He caught my eye and offered a small, sad smile. "She has her moments of wisdom," he said quietly. "Usually right when I'm about to completely fall apart." The waiter arrived, and we ordered spaghetti for Emma, as promised. I chose the same feeling like this wasn't a night for sophistication. Nathan ordered a simple pasta dish and a bottle of wine, asking if I'd share it with him. I nodded. "So, Claire Thompson," Nathan said once the waiter left. "Event planner. What kind of events?" "All kinds," I said. "Weddings mostly, but also corporate functions, milestone birthdays, charity galas. I'm basically a professional chaos coordinator." "She makes dreams come true," Emma said decisively, even though she couldn't possibly understand what an event planner did. "I can tell." "Sometimes," I said. "Lately it feels more like I make other people's dreams come true, while forgetting I might have some of my own." Nathan nodded slowly. "I understand that. I run a tech company. Started it 10 years ago, built it into something bigger than I ever imagined. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to make sure I was building a life, not just a business. My wife used to keep me grounded, reminded me what actually mattered. Without her..." He trailed off, then seemed to shake himself. "Sorry. You didn't sign up for the sad widower story." "I don't mind," I said honestly. "And for what it's worth, I think you're doing an amazing job. Your daughter is wonderful. She is," he agreed, looking at Emma with undisguised love. "She's the reason I get up in the morning, the reason I keep going. Sometimes the only reason." Our wine arrived, and Nathan poured 2 glasses. We clinked them together softly. No toast necessary, just 2 people acknowledging the strange circumstance that had brought us together. Emma chatted happily about her kindergarten class, her best friend Sophie, and the Christmas pageant she'd been in the week before. She'd played an angel, she told me proudly. She had wings and everything, but she wasn't allowed to keep them, which she thought was very unfair. I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in months, maybe years. There was something about this odd little trio, me, Nathan, and Emma, that felt right. Safe. Like we were all refugees from our own private storms, finding unexpected shelter together. "Can I ask you a question?" Nathan said after a while, as Emma colored in her sketchbook. "Why did you agree to join us? You could have just left, gone home, ended this nightmare of a night." I considered the question, took a sip of wine. "Honestly, because your daughter asked me to be her mom. And even though that's impossible and complicated, and probably a little bit crazy, it was the first time in a very long time that someone wanted me around. Not for what I could do for them, not for how I fit into their plans. Just because she looked at me and decided I seemed nice. There's something really pure about that." Nathan's eyes softened. "She has good instincts, always has. Even when she was a baby, she could tell who was genuine and who was just going through the motions. She never warmed up to fake people." "What does that say about me then?" I asked with a slight smile. "That you're real," he said simply. "And in my experience, real is rare." Our food arrived, and for a while we just ate. Emma got sauce on her face, and her dress unbothered by the mess. Nathan cut her meatballs into smaller pieces without being asked, a gesture so practiced and paternal that it made my chest ache. "So your blind date," Nathan said eventually. "The guy who called you boring. I'm assuming he's not someone you'll be seeing again. I laughed darkly. Definitely not. Though it's probably for the best. I haven't exactly been great at relationships lately. My last serious one ended with my fiancé canceling our wedding 3 weeks beforehand. Ouch, Nathan said with genuine sympathy. What happened? He decided he wasn't ready, needed to find himself. The usual suspects. Looking back, I can see the signs were there all along. But when you love someone, you ignore the signs. You tell yourself it'll get better. And then one day you're standing in your wedding dress at the final fitting, and your phone rings, and your whole life just... I made a gesture like an explosion. I'm sorry, Nathan said quietly. That's brutal. It was, I agreed. But I survived. Threw myself into work, built my walls higher, told myself I was fine alone. And I am mostly. But nights like tonight remind me that maybe fine isn't enough. Maybe I want more than just surviving. Emma looked up from her drawing. My daddy says it's brave to want things even when you're scared. Your daddy is very wise, I told her. I know, she said matter-of-factly, making both Nathan and me laugh. As dinner wound down, Emma's energy began to flag. She leaned against my arm, her eyes drooping. Without thinking, I put my arm around her and she snuggled closer. Over her head, Nathan and I shared a look. Something passed between us. Recognition, maybe? Or possibility? Or just the acknowledgement of two people who'd both been wounded finding unexpected comfort in each other's company. I should get her home, Nathan said reluctantly. It's past her bedtime, and if I don't get her to sleep soon, she'll be an absolute monster tomorrow. I heard that Emma mumbled, though her eyes were closed. We gathered our things. Nathan paid the bill despite my protests. As we walked toward the exit, Emma's small hand found mine. She held on tight, and I felt something in my chest crack open. Some sealed place I'd thought was permanently closed. Outside, the night air was cold and crisp. Snow had begun to fall, light flakes that caught in Emma's hair. Nathan's car, I noticed, was a normal SUV, not the flashy sports car I might have expected. He unlocked it and helped Emma into her car seat. She was already half asleep. We stood there on the sidewalk, snowflakes drifting between us. The moment felt weighted with something I couldn't quite name. Thank you, Nathan said, for joining us, for being kind to Emma, for making what could have been a really hard night into something better. Thank you, I countered, for the same reasons, and for the piano playing. It was exactly what I needed, even though I didn't know I needed it. He smiled, and I noticed for the first time that he had a dimple on his left cheek. Would it be completely inappropriate if I asked for your number? No pressure, just, I'd like to talk again, if you're open to it. My heart did a complicated thing in my chest. Hope and fear all tangled together. But I thought about what Emma had said, about being brave enough to want things even when you're scared. I'd like that, I heard myself say. We exchanged numbers. Our fingers brushed as he handed back my phone. A small touch, barely anything, but I felt it down to my bones. Merry Christmas, Claire, he said softly. Merry Christmas, Nathan. I watched him drive away, Emma's small hand waving from the window. Then I stood there in the falling snow, my terrible night somehow transformed into something that felt like the beginning of a story I couldn't wait to read. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I lay in bed replaying every moment. The piano music, Emma's question, the way Nathan looked at his daughter, the feeling of belonging I'd experienced at that table even though we'd just met. It felt significant, impossible, terrifying. And then because I'm an event planner and therefore terminally curious, I did what anyone would do. I Googled him. Nathan Cross. The search results made my stomach drop. Billionaire tech entrepreneur. founder and CEO of Crosstech Solutions, a company valued at over $3 billion. Featured in Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg. Photos of him at charity galas, tech conferences, shaking hands with celebrities and politicians. A completely different world from the humble, grieving father I'd met at the restaurant. I scrolled through images, my heart racing. There were older photos, too. Nathan with a beautiful blonde woman. His late wife, Rachel, cancer survivor turned advocate, the articles said, until the disease came back and took her. She looked kind, happy, like someone who'd made the world brighter just by being in it. I found an interview Nathan had given 6 months after her death. He talked about grief, about learning to be a single father, about trying to honor Rachel's memory while building a future for Emma. He was eloquent and honest, and clearly still devastated. And now here I was, a middle-class event planner who lived in a 1-bedroom apartment and drove a 6-year-old Honda. What was I thinking? That I could somehow fit into his world? That Emma's sweet question could translate into actual reality? I closed my laptop, feeling foolish. It had been a nice night, a meaningful encounter, but that's all it was. All it could be. Except the next morning my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi Claire, it's Nathan. Emma wanted me to tell you that she had a dream about you last night. You were teaching her how to make cookies shaped like stars. She woke up disappointed that it wasn't real. Any chance you'd want to make it real sometime? No pressure? Just thought I'd ask. Merry Christmas." I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I typed back, "I make terrible cookies, fair warning, but I'd love to try. Merry Christmas to you both." His response came quickly. "Perfect. Terrible cookies are the best kind. Can I call you later? Please do." And that's how it started. Not with grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but with a text about cookies and a phone call that turned into 3 hours of talking about everything and nothing. Nathan called that afternoon, after Emma had opened her presents and they'd had breakfast together. We talked about our families, our jobs, our favorite books and movies, and childhood memories. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, like we'd known each other for years instead of hours. He didn't mention his wealth, didn't name drop or brag. He talked about the company he'd built, but in terms of the problems it solved and the people it employed. When I mentioned I'd looked him up online, he went quiet for a moment. "Does it change things?" he asked carefully. Knowing about all that I don't know, I answered honestly. "It's intimidating. Your world is so different from mine. My world is Emma's bedtime stories and burnt toast, and trying to figure out how to braid hair," he said. "The money is just there. It's not who I am. It's not what matters. What does matter? This," he said simply. "Talking to you. Feeling like maybe I'm allowed to want something for myself again. Emma laughing at breakfast this morning because she remembered you wiping sauce off her chin last night. Those are the things that matter." Something in my chest loosened. "Okay," I said. "Then let's focus on those things. We made plans to meet again. Nothing fancy," he promised. "Just a walk in the park with Emma. Simple, easy, no pressure." But I couldn't stop thinking about the images I'd seen online. The mansion he must live in. The circles he traveled in. The life he led that was so far removed from mine. Was I setting myself up for heartbreak? Was I being naive? My best friend Emma called that evening demanding details about the blind date. When I told her what had actually happened, the rejection, the piano, the little girl's question Nathan. She went silent for a long moment. "Let me get this straight," she finally said. "You met a billionaire tech CEO whose daughter asked you to be her mom, and you're going to see them again. When you say it like that, it sounds insane. Because it is insane. Claire, this is literally a Hallmark movie plot. These things don't happen in real life. I know. Believe me, I know. But Emma, when I was with them, I felt something I haven't felt in so long. Like I belonged. Like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Or like you're setting yourself up to get hurt again. Remember the last guy who seemed too good to be true? How'd that work out? Her words stung because they were fair. My ex-fiancé had seemed perfect too. Until he wasn't. I'm going into this with my eyes open, I said. I'm not expecting anything. I'm just seeing where it goes. Okay, Emma said, though I could hear the worry in her voice. But promise me you'll be careful. Protect yourself. Don't give your whole heart away before you know if it's safe. I promise, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure it was a promise I could keep. The days between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange blur. Nathan and I texted constantly. Good morning messages. Photos Emma drew for me. Late-night conversations when Emma was asleep and the house was quiet. We talked about our fears, our hopes, our scars. He told me about the first year after Rachel's death, how he'd barely been able to function, how Emma had been the only thing keeping him tethered to the world. I told him about my broken engagement, about the shame I still carried, about how I'd convinced myself I was better off alone because alone meant safe. Safe is overrated, he said during one of our late-night calls. I was safe before I met you, comfortable in my grief. And then Emma asked you that question, and you said yes to dinner, and suddenly I realized I'd been holding my breath for 2 years. You made me want to breathe again. The vulnerability in his voice made my eyes sting with tears. I'm scared, I admitted, of getting hurt, of not being enough, of this being too good to be true. I'm scared too, he said. Terrified, actually. But I think maybe the things worth having are the things that scare us most. We made plans for New Year's Eve. Nothing elaborate, just dinner at his house. He'd cook, he said. Emma was insisting I be there when the clock struck midnight because she'd learned that you're supposed to spend New Year's with the people you love. She said that I asked my heart, stuttering. She did. She also informed me that you're going to be her new mom, so we might as well get used to having you around. I tried to explain that's not exactly how it works, but she's 5 and stubborn. Wonder where she gets that from. I laughed, but my mind was reeling. This was moving fast, maybe too fast. But it also felt inevitable, like we were all being pulled by the same current toward something we couldn't resist, even if we wanted to. New Year's Eve arrived cold and clear. I drove to the address Nathan had given me, my hands shaking slightly on the wheel. I'd expected something impressive, but nothing prepared me for the reality. The house was a mansion. There was no other word for it. Set back from the road, surrounded by tall trees and high gates, security cameras, an intercom system. I almost turned around, almost drove away. But then the gates opened, and I heard Nathan's voice through the speaker. Claire, come on up. Emma's been watching for you for the past hour. I drove up the long driveway, my heart in my throat. The house was beautiful, modern, but warm all windows and natural wood. Not ostentatious, but undeniably wealthy. This was Nathan's real world. The world I'd be entering if this went anywhere. The front door opened before I could knock, and Emma came flying out, her pigtails bouncing. She wore a sparkly dress and light-up shoes. "You came!" she shrieked, throwing her arms around my legs. "Daddy said you might be too busy, but I knew you'd come. I made you a present. It's a drawing. You're going to love it. Well, you might not love it, but you have to pretend because I worked really hard. I'm sure I'll love it," I said, hugging her back. Over her head, I saw Nathan emerge from the house. He wore jeans and a soft sweater, and the smile on his face was so genuine that some of my anxiety eased. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi," I replied. "Come inside. It's freezing out here, and I have wine and cheese and a very excited 5-year-old who's been talking about you non-stop for days." Emma grabbed my hand and pulled me into the house. The interior was even more beautiful than the exterior. High ceilings, art on the walls, but also evidence of a child living here. Toys in a basket, drawings on the refrigerator, Emma's backpack hanging on a hook. Nathan had clearly made an effort. The dining table was set beautifully, but simply. Candles, fresh flowers, nothing too formal. The kitchen smelled amazing, something Italian cooking. "I hope you like lasagna," he said. "It's one of the 3 things I can actually cook well. The other 2 are scrambled eggs and grilled cheese." "Lasagna's perfect," I said. "Can I help with anything?" "Absolutely not. You're a guest. Besides, Emma has plans for you." Emma did indeed have plans. She dragged me to the living room where she'd set up an elaborate tea party with her stuffed animals. We spent the next hour having very serious conversations with a teddy bear named Mr. Fluffington and a rabbit named Princess Carrot. Emma assigned me the voice for a giraffe named Steve, who apparently had strong opinions about everything. From the kitchen, I could hear Nathan moving around, and occasionally he'd poke his head in to check on us. Each time he'd smile at the seeing me on the floor in my nice dress, Emma ordering me around, both of us completely absorbed in this imaginary world. Dinner was wonderful. Nathan had made too much food, but everything was delicious. Emma told knock-knock jokes that made no sense, but were hilarious anyway. Nathan told stories about Emma as a baby, and she protested loudly while also clearly loving the attention. After dinner, we moved to the living room. Emma curled up between us on the couch, growing sleepy, despite her insistence that she was going to stay up until midnight. Nathan put on a movie, something animated and cheerful. But I barely watched it. I was too aware of him beside me, of the warmth of his arm near mine, of the little girl using my lap as a pillow. This, I thought, this is what I've been missing. Not the wealth or the beautiful house, but this feeling of family, of belonging, of being wanted not for what I could provide, but simply for being me. Around 11, Emma fell asleep completely. Nathan carefully lifted her, and I followed him upstairs to her bedroom. It was painted a soft pink, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and shelves full of books and toys. He laid her gently in bed, pulled the covers up, and kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, Em," he whispered. "Love you to the moon and back." We tiptoed out, leaving her door cracked open. Downstairs, Nathan poured us each a glass of champagne. We had 45 minutes until midnight. "Thank you for coming," he said. "This night could have been really hard. Our first New Year's without Rachel. But having you here, it feels right. Like maybe we're allowed to move forward, to build something new while still honoring what we had." "I'm glad I came," I said, "even though this house is absolutely terrifying, and I spent the first 20 minutes convinced I'd break something expensive." He laughed. "It's just a house, 4 walls and a roof. The only things that matter are the people inside it." We talked until midnight, the conversation flowing as easily as it had on the phone. When the clock struck 12, fireworks erupted in the distance. We could see them through the tall windows, bursts of color against the dark sky. "Happy New Year," Claire, Nathan said softly. "Happy New Year, Nathan." He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. But I didn't want to pull away. I wanted this, wanted him. Our lips met in a kiss that was gentle and sweet and felt like a promise. Like the beginning of something that could be extraordinary if we were brave enough to let it. When we pulled apart, we were both smiling. So he said, "Can I take you to dinner tomorrow? An actual date. Just the 2 of us. Emma will be with her grandparents. I'd love that, I said. And I meant it. Despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the voice in my head warning me to protect myself, I meant it with my whole heart. The next few weeks unfolded like a dream I was afraid to wake from. Nathan and I fell into an easy rhythm. We texted throughout the day, funny observations, random thoughts, photos. He sent me a picture of Emma wearing mismatched socks and a tutu to breakfast. I sent him a photo of a particularly disastrous wedding cake I'd had to fix at work. The conversations were light, easy, but underneath ran a current of something deeper. Our phone calls became a nightly ritual. After Emma was asleep, Nathan would call, and we'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. Our childhoods, our dreams, the books we'd loved, the places we wanted to visit. He told me about building his company from nothing, the late nights, and constant fear that it wouldn't work. The moment he knew he'd succeeded, and the emptiness that came with it, because Rachel wasn't there to celebrate. I told him about my work, the joy of creating perfect moments for strangers, the loneliness of coming home to an empty apartment afterward, the fear that I'd never find someone who saw me as more than just competent, reliable Claire, someone who wanted me not just what I could do. "I see you," he said one night, his voice soft through the phone. "Not what you do or how you help or how well you plan. I see you, Claire." The woman who sat on my living room floor playing tea party with my daughter, who cried during a piano performance, who admitted she was scared but showed up anyway. That's who I see. I had to wipe my eyes. I see you too, not the billionaire or the CEO, the father who braids his daughter's hair even though it takes him 20 minutes and it's still lopsided, who plays piano like he's pouring his soul into the keys, who's brave enough to love again even though you lost everything once already. "We're quite a pair, aren't we?" he said with a soft laugh. "We really are." Emma sent me voice messages through Nathan's phone, rambling stories about her day at school, questions about whether I liked unicorns or dragons better, requests for me to come over soon because Mr. Fluffington missed me. Each message made me smile and also made my chest ache with how much I was coming to care for this little girl. My best friend Emma grew increasingly worried. "You're falling for them," she said one night over wine at my apartment. "Both of them. And it's happening fast. Too fast." I know I admitted, but it doesn't feel too fast. It feels like finding something I didn't know I'd been looking for my whole life. "That's what worries me," she said gently. "Last time you felt that way, you ended up with a canceled wedding and a broken heart. This is different. Is it, or are you just wanting it to be different so badly that you're ignoring red flags?" "What red flags?" I demanded. "He's kind. He's honest. He's an amazing father. He treats me like I matter. He's also a billionaire with a complicated life and a daughter who's already attached to you. What happens if this doesn't work out? You're not just risking your own heart anymore. You're risking Emma's too." Her words haunted me. She was right. Emma had already started calling me her almost mom, according to Nathan. She talked about me at school, drew pictures of the three of us together. She was building a fantasy in her mind, and I was helping her do it. But I couldn't seem to stop. Didn't want to stop. Because when I was with them, I felt complete in a way I never had before. The following weekend, Nathan suggested we spend the day together. All three of us. There was a Christmas market downtown that stayed up through January, and Emma had been begging to go. "I know it's not exactly a romantic date," Nathan said apologetically. "But Emma really wants you there, and honestly, so do I. I like seeing you with her. It feels like family," I finished softly. "Yeah," he said, "exactly like that." Saturday was cold and bright. I met them at the market bundled in my warmest coat and scarf. Emma ran to me immediately, grabbing my hand. "We're going to get hot chocolate first," she announced, "with extra marshmallows, and then we're going to look at all the lights, and then maybe get our picture taken. Daddy said we could." Nathan walked beside us, his hands in his pockets, a small smile on his face. "She's been planning this for days. I hope you're ready." "I'm ready," I said. The market was magical. Rows of wooden stalls selling handmade crafts, baked goods, Christmas ornaments. String lights hung everywhere, creating a canopy of stars. Carolers sang in the corner. The smell of cinnamon and pine filled the air. We got our hot chocolate. Emma indeed got extra marshmallows and wandered through the stalls. Emma wanted to stop at every single one. She dragged us to a stall selling hand-painted ornaments and insisted we each pick one. Nathan chose a simple star. I picked a snowflake. Emma, after much deliberation, chose a tiny ceramic house with a family painted in the window. "That's us," she said, pointing to the three figures. "See, a mommy and a daddy, and a little girl." Nathan and I exchanged a glance over her head. His expression was complicated hope and fear and something tender. I felt the same way. This was becoming real. Undeniably, terrifyingly real. We took Emma on the carousel. She rode a white horse and waved at us each time she came around. Nathan stood beside me at the fence, our shoulders touching. "Thank you for this," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off Emma. "She hasn't been this happy in a very long time. You've given her something I couldn't give her myself. Hope. Joy. The possibility of happiness again." "You gave her that," I said. "You've been giving her that every single day for 2 years. I'm just here." "You're not just here," he said, turning to face me. "You're part of our lives now, part of our story. And I need you to know that's what I want. If it's what you want, too." My heart hammered. It's what I want. "But Nathan, I'm scared. Your world is so big, so public, so different from mine. What if I can't handle it? What if I let Emma down? What if he took my hand, stopping my spiral? What if it works? What if this is exactly what we all need? What if we're brave enough to try?" Before I could answer, Emma returned, her cheeks flushed from the cold and excitement. "Booth," she shouted, pointing to a small booth decorated with Christmas lights. "We have to take pictures! Come on!" The three of us crammed into the tiny booth. The camera counted down. For the first picture, we smiled normally. For the second, Emma made a silly face, and we copied her. For the third, Nathan kissed the top of Emma's head, and she kissed my cheek, and I felt my eyes sting with tears. For the fourth and final picture, Emma positioned us carefully. Nathan on one side, me on the other, Emma in the middle. "Family picture," she announced. The flash went off, capturing the three of us together. When the photo strip printed, we each took one. Mine went immediately into my wallet. I caught Nathan looking at his copy with an expression so full of longing that I had to look away. As the afternoon wore on, Emma started to tire. She held both our hands swinging between us, making us lift her up and down. She chattered constantly, pointing out everything she saw, making up stories about the people passing by. And then, without warning, she stumbled. Her foot caught on uneven pavement, and she started to fall. Both Nathan and I caught her at the same time, our hands meeting, holding her safe between us. Emma laughed, unbothered. But Nathan and I stayed frozen for a moment, hands joined Emma, suspended between us. A perfect metaphor for what was happening. We were catching each other, building something together, creating a safety net made of hope and tenderness, and the terrifying possibility of love. "I've got you," Nathan said softly. And I wasn't sure if he was talking to Emma or to me. "I know," I whispered back. "I've got you too." We spent the rest of the afternoon together, got dinner at a small restaurant Emma loved. She fell asleep on the drive back to Nathan's house, worn out from the day. He carried her inside, and I followed, my heart full and aching at the same time. After putting Emma to bed, we sat in his living room. The Christmas tree lights were still on, casting a soft glow. "I need to tell you something," Nathan said, "and I need you to really hear me." My stomach clenched. "Okay. I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. I know there are 1,000 reasons this shouldn't work. But I'm falling in love with you anyway, and I needed you to know." My breath caught. "Nathan, you don't have to say it back." He continued. "I'm not asking for that. I just needed to be honest, because honesty is the only way this has any chance of working. And I want it to work, Claire, more than I've wanted anything in a very long time." I looked at this man, this kind, wounded, brave man who'd lost everything and was finding the courage to risk it all again. And I thought about Emma asleep upstairs, who'd asked me to be her mom before she even knew my last name. And I thought about myself, the woman who'd built walls so high she couldn't see over them, who was slowly, terrifyingly learning to tear them down. "I'm falling in love with you too," I whispered. "Both of you. And it terrifies me." "Good," he said, pulling me close. "If we're terrified together, maybe we'll be brave enough to see it through." He kissed me then, and it felt like jumping off a cliff, like free fall, like the most dangerous and necessary thing I'd ever done. The following week, reality came crashing in. Nathan had warned me it might happen, told me that his life wasn't entirely private, that there were photographers sometimes, reporters, people interested in his personal life because of his wealth and his company's prominence. But I hadn't really understood what that meant until I saw the photos. Someone had taken pictures of us at the Christmas market. Not professional paparazzi, probably just someone with a phone who recognized Nathan. But they'd sold the photos to a tabloid, and suddenly our private afternoon was public entertainment. The headline read, "Tech billionaire Nathan Cross spotted with mystery woman and daughter at Christmas market, new romance." The photos were everywhere. Social media, news sites, gossip blogs. In them, you could see Nathan and me holding Emma's hands. The moment we'd caught her when she stumbled. Us laughing at the hot chocolate stand. The three of us cramped into the photo booth, and underneath speculation. Who was I? Where had I come from? Was this serious? How long had we been seeing each other? What did this mean for Nathan Cross's late wife's legacy? That last question stung the most. My phone started ringing. Friends I hadn't talked to in years, former classmates, even a few reporters who'd somehow found my number. I stopped answering, stopped checking social media, but the anxiety crawled under my skin anyway. Nathan called immediately when the photos hit. "Claire, I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful. I should have warned you better. Are you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Everyone's staring at me. I got stopped at the grocery store. Someone asked if I was the woman trying to replace Rachel Cross. Like I'm some kind of villain in a story I didn't even know I was part of." "You're not replacing anyone," Nathan said fiercely. "Rachel will always be Emma's mother. Always. But that doesn't mean there's no room for you in our lives. It doesn't mean we're not allowed to move forward. I know that. But does everyone else?" He was quiet for a moment. "No, probably not. And I'm sorry for that. Sorry that my life comes with this kind of scrutiny. If you want to slow down, I understand. If you want to step back, I don't want to step back," I interrupted. "I just need to figure out how to deal with this. How to exist in your world without losing myself completely." "Then we'll figure it out together," he promised. "At your pace. Whatever you need." But it wasn't just the media attention. It was what came with it. The realization of just how different our worlds were. That week, Nathan invited me to a charity gala his company was sponsoring. It was black tie, he said. He'd send a car. It would be fine. It wasn't fine. The event was at a 5-star hotel, the kind with valet parking and red carpets and photographers everywhere. I wore the nicest dress I owned, had gotten my hair professionally done, but I still felt like a fraud. Everyone there dripped wealth and confidence. They spoke a language I didn't understand, mentions of summer homes in the Hamptons, private jets to Europe, investment portfolios, and exclusive clubs. Nathan introduced me to his business partners, his investors, his friends. They were polite, some were even warm, but I could see the curiosity in their eyes, the questions they weren't asking. Who was I? Where had I come from? What was I after? One woman, elegant and sharp-eyed, cornered me by the bar. "So, you're Nathan's new girlfriend," she said. It wasn't a question. "How did you two meet?" "At a restaurant," I said vaguely. "It was unexpected." "I'm sure it was," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nathan's quite a catch, though I imagine the money doesn't hurt." The implication was clear. I was a gold digger, an opportunist, someone taking advantage of a grieving widower. I excused myself and found the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and tried to breathe through the panic. This was his life. These were his people, and I would never ever fit in. Nathan found me 20 minutes later, lurking in a quiet hallway. "There you are," he said. "I've been looking everywhere." "Are you okay?" "I can't do this," I blurted out. "Nathan, look at this place. Look at these people. This isn't my world. I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to be what they expect. And they all think I'm just after your money. I don't care what they think," he said. "I care about you. About us. But I care," I said. "I care that every time we go out, people are going to be watching, judging, taking pictures. I care that Emma's going to grow up with strangers speculating about her life online. I care that I'm always going to be seen as the woman who replaced her mother, even though that's not what this is. Claire, your late wife's parents called me this week," I continued. "Did you know that they found my number somehow? They wanted to meet me, to make sure I understood that Rachel would always be Emma's real mother, that I shouldn't try to replace her. And they're right, Nathan. I could never replace her. I could never be what she was to you, to Emma. I'm just me." Nathan pulled me into his arms, and I let myself lean against him, exhausted. "You're not just anything," he said into my hair. "You're Claire. You're the woman my daughter asked to be her mom because she saw something in you that she needed. You're the woman who makes me want to believe in second chances. You're the woman I'm falling more in love with every single day. Even if I can't handle your world, my world isn't galas and photographers," he said. "My world is Emma's bedtime stories and burned toast and trying to remember where we put the missing sock. This," he gestured to the event around us, "this is just noise. You don't have to fit into it. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are." I wanted to believe him, but doubt had taken root, and I couldn't shake it loose. Things came to a head the following weekend. Nathan's late wife's parents, Emma's maternal grandparents, came to visit. They were kind people, I could tell. But they were also protective, grieving still, worried about Emma, and deeply uncertain about me. We had dinner at Nathan's house. I'd offered not to be there, but Nathan insisted. Said it was important they meet me, that we were a unit now, and they needed to understand that. The dinner was polite, but tense. Emma chattered happily, oblivious to the undercurrents. The grandparents, Carol and James, asked me careful questions. Where I was from, what I did, how I'd met Nathan. They watched every interaction I had with Emma, and I could feel their judgment. After Emma went to bed, we sat in the living room, and Carol, gentle but firm, said what she'd clearly been holding back all evening. "Nathan, we love you. You know that. And we're so grateful for how you've raised Emma. But we're concerned about how fast this is moving. Rachel hasn't been gone that long. And Emma is vulnerable. She's latching onto Claire because she's desperate for a mother. But what happens when this relationship doesn't work out?" What happens to Emma then? It's going to work out, Nathan said. You can't know that, James added. No one can know that. And in the meantime, Emma's getting attached to someone who may not be permanent in her life. I felt like I couldn't breathe, because they were right. What if it didn't work out? What if I couldn't handle Nathan's world? What if the pressure and the scrutiny and the constant feeling of inadequacy became too much? Maybe they're right, I heard myself say. Maybe we should slow down, give everyone time to adjust. Nathan looked at me, hurt flashing across his face. Claire, I just think we need to be realistic, I continued, even as my heart broke, saying the words. This is happening so fast, too fast, and Emma's already so attached. If something goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong. You can't promise that. The words came out louder than I intended. Nathan, you can't. Because what if I can't do this? What if I wake up one day and realize I'm in over my head? What if I hurt Emma or you or myself? What if you're just scared? He interrupted quietly. What if you're looking for reasons to run because that's easier than staying and fighting for this? The truth of his words hit me like a punch. Because he was right. I was scared, terrified. And part of me wanted to run, wanted to go back to my safe, small, lonely life where nobody could hurt me because nobody could reach me. Maybe I am scared, I admitted. But that doesn't make the concerns less valid. Carol and James left shortly after the evening ending on a note of unresolved tension. After they were gone, Nathan and I stood in his living room, the space between us feeling like miles. I can't force you to stay, Nathan said quietly. I can't make you believe this will work, but I need you to know that I'm all in, Claire. Completely. And if you're not, if you can't be, then maybe we need to figure that out now before Emma gets even more hurt. I don't know what I am, I whispered. I just know I'm drowning, and I don't know how to swim in your world. Then let me help you, he pleaded. Let me teach you. Let us figure it out together. But I was already pulling away my walls, rebuilding themselves brick by brick. I need some space, I said. I need to think, to figure out if I can really do this. Pain flashed across his face, but he nodded. Okay, if that's what you need. But Claire, don't take too long, because Emma's going to ask where you are. And I don't know what to tell her if you've decided we're not worth the risk. I left that night with tears streaming down my face, drove home in a blur, and for the first time in weeks I was alone in my apartment, safe, protected, completely and utterly miserable. The next few days were torture. Nathan respected my request for space, but Emma didn't understand. She called my phone, and I let it go to voicemail because I couldn't bear to hear her voice asking when I was coming back. My best friend Emma came over and found me on my couch, surrounded by tissues. Okay, she said. Talk to me. What happened? I told her everything. The gala, the grandparents, the feeling of drowning, the fear that I was going to hurt everyone involved, including myself. So you're running, Emma said when I finished. I'm protecting myself. You're running, she repeated. Just like you did after your engagement ended. You're so scared of getting hurt again that you're willing to walk away from something real, something that could be incredible. It could also be a disaster. It could, she agreed. But Claire, everything worth having comes with risk. You know that. You plan events for a living. You know that the best moments, the most beautiful celebrations are the ones where people take the leap. Where they say yes, even though they're terrified. This is different, is it? Or are you just more scared because the stakes are higher? Because it's not just a wedding or a party, it's your actual life and actual heart. I didn't have an answer for that. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Just a photo. Emma asleep on the couch, clutching the small stuffed giraffe I'd given her. Steve, she'd named him. Underneath, Nathan had written, She's been carrying this everywhere. Won't let it out of her sight. She misses you. We both do. My heart shattered all over again. What do? I asked Emma. How do I know if I'm strong enough for this? You don't, she said gently. Nobody ever knows if they're strong enough. You just decide what you want, more safety or love, and then you act accordingly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment with Nathan and Emma. The piano playing that first night. Emma's question. The Christmas market. The feeling of Emma's hand in mine. Nathan's kiss. The way they'd both looked at me like I was something precious. Something worth keeping. And I thought about the alternative. Going back to my safe, empty life. Never seeing them again. Never knowing if we could have made it work. The fear of that, of losing them completely, was suddenly greater than any fear of trying. I grabbed my phone and texted Nathan. Can I come over tomorrow? I need to talk to you. Both of you. His response came immediately, even though it was past midnight any time. We're here. We'll always be here. The next day was Christmas. I'd forgotten in the chaos of the past week. I drove to Nathan's house with my heart in my throat, clutching the presents I'd bought for Emma weeks ago. Emma answered the door, and her face when she saw me was something I'll remember for the rest of my life. Pure joy. Pure relief. You came back, she shrieked, launching herself at me. I knew you would. I told Daddy you would. He was sad, but I told him you were just scared, and that was okay because sometimes I get scared too. But then I'm not scared anymore and everything's okay. Over her head, I saw Nathan standing in the hallway. He looked tired, hopeful, cautious. Hi, I said softly. Hi, he replied. Emma dragged me inside, chattering about all the presents under the tree, and how she'd made me a special ornament, and how she'd been so good all week, because she wanted Santa to know she was ready for me to be her mom. We sat in the living room, Emma between us opening presents. She loved everything I'd given her: a craft kit, some books, a small music box that played Pachelbel's Canon. But what she loved most was that I was there. After presents, after breakfast, after Emma was absorbed in her new toys, Nathan and I finally had a chance to talk. We stepped out onto his back patio, the cold air sharp but clarifying. I'm sorry, I said before he could speak. I'm sorry I ran. Sorry I let fear win. Sorry I hurt you and Emma. Why are you here, Claire? He asked quietly. Really? Because if you're just going to leave again, I'm not leaving, I interrupted. That's what I came to tell you. I'm not leaving. I'm scared. Yes. Terrified, actually. Your world is big and overwhelming, and I'm constantly afraid I'm going to mess this up. But I'm more afraid of not trying, of walking away from you and Emma and regretting it for the rest of my life. Nathan's eyes filled with tears. You mean that I mean it? I don't know if I can be everything Emma needs. I don't know if I can handle the scrutiny and the pressure and all the things that come with your life. But I want to try. If you'll let me. If you still want me. He pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. Of course I still want you. I'll always want you. We'll figure out the rest. Together. Together, I echoed. And for the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. We went back inside to find Emma building an elaborate castle with her new blocks. When she saw us, she looked up, studied our faces, and grinned. You're staying, she said confidently. I can tell. You have happy faces now instead of sad faces. I'm staying, I confirmed, if that's okay with you. It's very okay, she said seriously. It's the okayest thing ever. Can you help me with my castle? It needs a tower, but I can't make it work. And just like that, we were back. Not like nothing had happened, but like we'd weathered something hard. and come out stronger. We spent the rest of Christmas Day together, building castles, watching movies, making cookies that turned out lopsided but delicious. Being a family in the simplest, most profound way. That night, after Emma was asleep, Nathan and I sat by the Christmas tree lights. I talked to Carol and James, he said. Told them that you're part of our lives now, that I need them to respect that, even if they're worried. They're trying, it's hard for them. But they're trying, I'll try too, I promised. To be patient, to understand their grief, to prove that I'm here for the right reasons. You don't have to prove anything, Nathan said. Just be yourself. That's all we need. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, we really could make this work. The next few weeks were a balancing act. Nathan and I worked to integrate our lives while respecting Emma's needs and my own boundaries. We established routines. I started spending weekends at Nathan's house. Emma and I developed our own traditions. Pancake breakfasts on Saturdays, bedtime stories, where I did all the character voices art projects that ended with more paint on us than on the paper. But Nathan's world kept intruding in ways I wasn't prepared for. There was the morning I woke up to find new photos of us online. Someone had taken them through the window of a cafe where we'd had lunch. The headlines speculated about when we'd get engaged, whether I was pregnant, what Rachel's family thought of me. It felt violating, invasive. There was the business dinner Nathan had to attend, where spouses were expected. I wore a dress that cost more than my monthly rent, and spent 3 hours making small talk with people whose smallest investment was more than my annual salary. They were polite, but I felt like an imposter. A fraud wearing borrowed clothes and pretending to belong. There was the day Emma's school called because paparazzi had shown up trying to get photos of her. The school had to beef up security. Emma, thank God, didn't really understand. But I felt guilty anyway, like my presence in her life was making everything more complicated. And there was the realization that Nathan's wealth wasn't just about money. It was about a lifestyle I couldn't fully understand. Staff who managed his house, security teams who vetted visitors, schedules planned months in advance, a level of access and privilege I'd never imagined. One evening, Nathan had to take an urgent business call. It was supposed to be a quick conversation, but it stretched into an hour, then 2. I stayed with Emma reading her books, playing games. But I could hear him through the closed office door, his voice sharp with stress, dealing with some crisis in his company. When he finally emerged, he looked exhausted. "I'm so sorry," he said. "That took way longer than I thought." "It's okay," I said, but something in my voice must have given me away. "It's not okay," he said, sitting down heavily. "This is my life, Claire. The company, the constant demands, the never being able to fully disconnect. And I need you to understand that, because it's not going to change. This is who I am." "I know," I said, but did I really understand what I was signing up for? Over the next few days, I started noticing things I'd overlooked before. The way Nathan's phone was always within reach. The staff who moved through the house efficiently and invisibly. The security cameras. The gates. The way we couldn't just spontaneously go somewhere without planning and coordination. It hit me fully one afternoon when I'd stopped by after work, still in my work clothes, simple slacks and a blouse. Emma wanted to go to the park, and I assumed we'd just walk there. But Nathan explained that the park required driving, that security would need to come, that we'd need to time it to avoid crowds. "We can't just go?" I asked. "Not easily," he admitted. "I'm sorry. I know it's not normal, but it's necessary. For Emma's safety. For all our safety." I understood, but understanding didn't make it easier, didn't make me feel less like I was living in a gilded cage. That evening alone in my apartment, I had a moment of panic. What was I doing? I was a regular person trying to fit into an extraordinary life. Every day brought new reminders of how different our worlds were, how many compromises I'd have to make, how much of my normal, simple life I'd have to give up. My phone rang. "Nathan." "Hey," he said softly. "You left quickly earlier. Are you okay?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Nathan, I love you. I love Emma. But I'm struggling with all of this. The security, the staff, the constant awareness that we're being watched. I can't just be myself around you. I have to always be conscious of who might be looking, what might end up online, how my actions reflect on you and Emma." "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm sorry. I wish I could give you a normal life. Normal dates and normal outings and normal everything. But this is my reality. Our reality. And I can't change it. I know you can't. That's what makes it so hard." There was a long pause. Then Nathan said, "Do you regret this, us?" "No," I said immediately. "Never. But that doesn't mean it's easy." "No," he agreed. "It's not easy. But Claire, nothing worth having ever is. And you're worth every difficult moment, every complication, every sacrifice. If you can believe that if you can hold on to that, then we'll get through this." I wanted to believe him, tried to, but doubt was a persistent whisper in my mind. Everything came crashing down on a Wednesday afternoon. I'd taken the day off to surprise Emma at her school's art show. She'd been so excited about a painting she'd made, wanted me to see it. Nathan was stuck in meetings, but had asked me to go in his place to take photos to be there for Emma. The art show was sweet. Emma's painting was of our family stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. She'd labeled them carefully. Daddy, Emma, Mommy. The word Mommy had an arrow pointing to my stick figure. My heart clenched. I wasn't her mommy, not legally, not really. But to Emma I was. And that responsibility felt suddenly crushing. After the show, I was driving Emma back to Nathan's house when his mother-in-law called my cell phone. Carol. She asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us, woman to woman. I should have said no. Should have told Nathan first. But I agreed, thinking maybe we could clear the air, build a bridge. We met at a quiet cafe. Carol ordered tea. I got coffee I couldn't drink because my stomach was in knots. "Claire," she began gently, "I want to start by saying I don't dislike you. You seem like a genuinely good person. But I'm worried. Not just for Emma, but for you too. Worried about what? About whether you understand what you're getting into. Nathan's world is complicated. The money, the attention, the pressure, it's not something most people can handle. And Emma, she's so vulnerable right now. She's latched onto you because she desperately wants a mother. But what happens in a year, 2 years, when the novelty wears off and you realize you can't do this anymore?" "That's not going to happen," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Can you promise that?" Carol asked, and her eyes were kind but searching. "Can you honestly promise that you won't wake up one day and realize this life isn't for you? That you'll stay no matter how hard it gets, no matter how much you have to sacrifice, no matter how much of yourself you lose in the process?" I couldn't answer, because I didn't know. I wanted to stay, wanted to fight for this. But Carol was voicing every fear I'd been trying to suppress. "Rachel," Carol continued softly, "she was born into this world. She understood it. She knew how to navigate it. But even she struggled sometimes. And she was stronger than anyone I've ever known. I look at you, Claire, and I see someone who's trying so hard to fit into a life that isn't yours. And I worry that trying to be someone you're not is going to break you. And when you break Emma, we'll break too." "I love them," I whispered. "Both of them." "I believe you do," Carol said. "But love isn't always enough. Sometimes love means recognizing when you're not the right fit. when staying does more harm than good. I left that cafe in a daze. Carol's words echoed in my head. What if she was right? What if I was kidding myself? What if my presence in Emma's life was ultimately going to cause more pain than joy? That night, Nathan could tell something was wrong. We were at his house, Emma asleep upstairs, and I couldn't meet his eyes. What happened? He asked. Talk to me. I met with Carol today, I admitted. His expression darkened. She called you without telling me. She wanted to talk, woman to woman, about whether I understood what I was getting into, whether I was really capable of this. And what did you tell her? I didn't know what to tell her. I said, my voice breaking. Because Nathan, what if she's right? What if I'm not strong enough for this? What if I'm going to let Emma down, let you down because I can't handle your world? You're handling it fine, he insisted. Am I demanded. I can't go anywhere without security. I can't have a normal relationship with you because there are always cameras, always people watching. I can't even just be Emma's friend or mentor or whatever I am because she's already calling me mommy. And I'm not her mother. I'm not Rachel. I can never be Rachel. I don't want you to be Rachel. Nathan's voice rose. I want you to be you. That's all I've ever wanted. But what if me isn't enough? I was crying now. What if I'm just a normal person who can't live an extraordinary life? What if the best thing I can do for both of you is step away before this gets even more complicated? You're talking about leaving. His voice was flat, devastated. I'm talking about being realistic, about protecting Emma, about not making promises I can't keep, so that's it, Nathan asked. One hard conversation, and you're done. You're just going to walk away. I don't know. The words came out as a sob. I don't know what to do. I just know that I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to save myself without hurting everyone I love. Nathan looked at me for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the pain underneath. I can't make you stay, Claire. I can't force you to believe in us, to believe in yourself. But I need you to know something. If you walk away now, you're not protecting Emma. You're breaking her heart. She loves you, completely, unconditionally. And if you leave, she's going to think she did something wrong, that she wasn't good enough, that asking you to be her mom was a mistake. The words were like knives, but I couldn't promise to stay. Couldn't promise I wouldn't break eventually. Maybe you should go, Nathan said quietly. Take some time. Figure out what you really want. But Claire, don't come back unless you're sure. Don't come back unless you're ready to fight for this for us, no matter how hard it gets. Because Emma and we've already lost everything once. We can't survive losing it again. I left that night with tears streaming down my face. Drove home in a fog. And for the first time since I'd met them, I seriously considered that maybe love wasn't enough, that maybe Carol was right, that maybe the kindest thing I could do was let them go. The week that followed was the worst of my life. I didn't hear from Nathan. Respected his request for space, even though every moment without him and Emma felt like missing a limb. But Emma didn't understand space. She called every day, her voice small and confused. When are you coming back? She'd ask. Did I do something wrong? Daddy says you just need time, but I don't understand. Don't you want to be my mommy anymore? Each call destroyed me. I'd make excuses, say I was busy with work, promise I'd see her soon. But the truth was, I was paralyzed. Terrified of making the wrong choice, of hurting her more by staying or by leaving. My apartment felt like a prison. Everything reminded me of them. The photo strip from the Christmas market taped to my mirror. Emma's drawings on my refrigerator. The small things Nathan had left here. A book, a sweater, a coffee mug. My best friend Emma came over and found me on the floor surrounded by tissues. Okay, she said firmly. Enough. This has to stop. What has to stop? I asked miserably. This cycle you're in. Running from anything that scares you. Pushing away anyone who gets too close. building walls and calling it protection when really it's just cowardice. "Wow," I said. "Tell me how you really feel." "I'm serious, Claire. You're about to throw away the best thing that's ever happened to you because you're scared. And I get it. After what happened with your ex, after feeling like you weren't enough, I understand why you're terrified. But Nathan isn't your ex. Emma isn't going to wake up one day and decide you're not good enough. They love you completely, messily, imperfectly, and you love them the same way. But what if I can't handle it?" I whispered. "What if Carol's right and I'm not strong enough?" "Then you get stronger," Emma said simply. "You fight for it. You ask for help. You make compromises and adjustments and you figure it out together. That's what people who love each other do. They don't run at the first sign of difficulty. They stay and they fight." "I'm so tired of fighting," I admitted. "I know," she said gently. "But Claire, some things are worth fighting for. And from where I'm sitting, Nathan and Emma are worth every battle." After she left, I sat in the silence of my apartment. Really sat with it. And I realized something. This silence, this safety, this protection I'd built for myself, it wasn't freedom. It was a cage. A cage I'd locked myself in because I was too afraid to risk getting hurt again. But pain, I realized, wasn't the worst thing. Regret was worse. Living a small, safe life and always wondering what could have been that was worse. Missing out on love because I was too scared to reach for it. That was unbearable. I thought about Emma's question. "Can you be my new mom?" And I realized that I'd never actually answered it. Not really. I'd said yes to dinner that night. Yes to getting to know them. Yes to trying. But I'd never fully completely said yes to the question behind the question. Yes to being part of their family. Yes to loving them forever, no matter how hard it got. Yes to choosing them every single day, even when I was scared. I grabbed my phone and called Nathan. It went to voicemail. I hung up and tried again. Still voicemail. I texted, "I need to see you. Please. I know what I want now. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out, but I know. Please let me talk to you." No response. I stared at my phone for hours, but nothing came. The next day was Christmas. I'd lost track of days in my misery, forgotten it was coming. I woke up alone in my apartment, snow falling outside my window, and felt the crushing weight of my choices. They were probably having Christmas morning together, opening presents, making breakfast, missing me, maybe. Or maybe they'd already started moving on. Maybe Nathan had realized I was too much trouble, too uncertain, too scared. Maybe Emma had found someone else to fill the mom-shaped hole in her life. The thought was unbearable. I got dressed. Didn't bother with makeup because I knew I'd just cry it off. Got in my car and drove to Nathan's house, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I had no plan. No speech prepared. Just a desperate need to see them, to tell them I'd been wrong, to beg for another chance if they'd give it to me. I pulled up to the gates, pressed the intercom button, waited barely breathing. And then I heard her. Emma's voice crackling through the speaker. "Hello, Emma," I managed. "Sweetheart, it's Claire. Is your dad there, Claire?" The joy in her voice made me start crying. Daddy. "Claire's here. She came back. I told you she would." The gates opened, and I drove up that familiar driveway with tears streaming down my face. The front door opened before I even got out of the car, and Emma came running out in her pajamas, barefoot in the snow, not caring about the cold. I caught her as she launched herself at me, held her tight, felt her small arms around my neck, and her tears soaking my shirt. "You came back," she sobbed. "I knew you would. I knew it." "I'm so sorry," I whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should never have left." Over her shoulder, I saw Nathan standing in the doorway. He looked tired, wary, hopeful, afraid to hope. I carried Emma inside, and we stood in the entryway, this broken, beautiful mess of a family, nobody quite sure what to say. "Emma," Nathan said gently. "Why don't you go check if Santa came? I need to talk to Claire for a minute." "But I'll be right there," I promised her. "I'm not leaving. I promise." Emma studied my face, seemed to decide I was telling the truth, and ran toward the living room. Nathan and I stood there 3 feet apart, an ocean of hurt between us. "Why are you here, Claire?" he asked quietly. "Because I love you," I said. "Because I love Emma. Because I've spent the last week in hell realizing that being safe and alone is worse than being scared and with you. Because I was wrong." "You were scared," he corrected. "There's a difference." "I was a coward," I said. "I let other people's doubts become my doubts. I let the fear of what might go wrong stop me from fighting for what was right. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "You hurt her," Nathan said, and his voice broke. "She cried herself to sleep 3 nights in a row. She kept asking what she did wrong. Why you didn't want to be her mom anymore. I know." The words felt inadequate. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But Nathan, I'm here now. And I'm not running anymore. I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing Emma. Choosing us, even though it scares me. Especially because it scares me." "What changed?" he asked. "What's different now than it was a week ago?" "I realized that the fear isn't going to go away," I said. "I'm always going to be a little bit scared that I'm not good enough, that I don't fit, that I'm going to mess this up. But I also realized that losing you, losing Emma, that terrifies me more than anything else. And I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." Nathan took a step closer. "The world I live in, it's not going to change. The security, the scrutiny, the demands, that's all still there. I know. People are going to judge you, question you, make assumptions. It's going to be hard. I know. Emma's going to need you, depend on you. You can't just be here when it's easy and leave when it gets hard. If you do this, you're committing to all of it. The good and the bad. Forever, I know," I said again. "And I'm ready. Not because I'm not scared anymore, but because I'm finally brave enough to do it anyway." Nathan closed the distance between us, cupped my face in his hands. "You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life." He kissed me then, and it felt like coming home. Like every piece of me that had been scattered and lost suddenly clicking back into place. "Claire's staying." Emma's voice rang out from the living room. I can hear the kissing sounds. "That means she's staying." We broke apart laughing through our tears. Nathan rested his forehead against mine. "She's relentless," he said. "I love that about her," I replied. We walked into the living room hand in hand to find Emma bouncing with excitement. She'd clearly already been into her stocking chocolate smeared on her face, a new stuffed animal clutched in her arms. "You're really staying?" she asked suddenly, serious. "Forever." I knelt down to her level, looked into those hazel eyes that had changed my life with a single question. "Emma, months ago you asked me if I could be your new mom, and I never properly answered you. I said yes to dinner, yes to getting to know you, yes to spending time with you. But I never said yes to the real question. So I'm saying it now. Yes. Yes, I want to be your mom. Not your new mom, because nobody can replace the mom you lost. But another mom. Someone who loves you completely and wants to be part of your life forever. If you still want me. Of course I still want you." Emma threw herself at me, nearly knocking me over. "I wanted you from the very first time I saw you. I just knew. Daddy said I couldn't just know, but I did. I knew you were supposed to be my mom." "Sometimes 5-year-olds are wiser than the rest of us," Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. We spent the rest of Christmas morning together, opening presents, making a disaster of the kitchen, trying to cook breakfast, laughing at Emma's jokes, being exactly what we were meant to be, a family. Later that afternoon, after Emma had worn herself out with new toys and was napping on the couch, Nathan and I had a chance to really talk. I spoke with Carol and James yesterday, he said. Told them that you were coming back, that we were going to make this work. They're still worried, but they're also trying. They want Emma to be happy, and Emma's happiest when you're around. I want to have a relationship with them, I said. I want them to see that I respect Rachel's memory, that I'm not trying to replace her or erase her, that I'm just trying to love Emma and you in my own way. They'll come around, Nathan said. They just need time. We'll give them time, I agreed. We'll give all of this time. We'll figure it out as we go. Nathan pulled me close. I meant what I said before. This life, my world, it's complicated. There are going to be hard days, days when you question if this is worth it. And I'll remind myself why it is, I said. I'll look at Emma. I'll look at you. I'll remember this feeling right here, right now. And I'll choose you all over again. I love you, he said softly. So much. More than I ever thought I could love anyone again. I love you too, I whispered. Both of you. My family. Over the next few months, we built our life together. I didn't move in right away. We took it slow, made sure Emma was comfortable with each step. But I was there more and more. Weekends became weekdays. Occasional dinners became regular routines. We had to navigate the complications, the scrutiny, the questions. But we did it together. When paparazzi got too invasive, Nathan's security team handled it. When I felt overwhelmed by the wealth and privilege, Nathan reminded me that I brought something to his life that money couldn't buy: authenticity, groundedness, love. Carol and James gradually warmed to me. It helped that I never tried to compete with Rachel's memory. I encouraged Emma to talk about her mother. We visited Rachel's grave together on her birthday. I learned about her from the people who'd loved her, and I came to love her too, in a way for the legacy she'd left behind. 6 months after Christmas, Nathan proposed. Not with a flash mob or a billboard or anything public. Just the three of us in the living room, where I'd first agreed to dinner, where Emma had first asked her impossible question. He got down on one knee, while Emma stood beside him holding a small box. Claire Thompson. Nathan said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. You walked into our lives when we were broken, and you didn't fix us. We're still a little broken, still healing, but you made us whole in a way I didn't think was possible. You chose us when you didn't have to. You stayed when it would have been easier to leave. You loved us even when you were terrified. Will you marry me? Will you officially be Emma's mom and my wife, and part of this beautifully complicated life forever? Emma opened the box to reveal a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. Say yes, Emma urged. Say yes, say yes, say yes, yes, I said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes to all of it. Yes to forever. Yes to being scared and brave at the same time. Yes to being your family. Just yes. Nathan slipped the ring on my finger, and Emma cheered, and we held each other, 3 people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, who'd built a family from grief and hope and love. The wedding happened a year later. Small and intimate, just close family and friends. Emma was the flower girl, of course. She took her job very seriously, critiquing every detail of the planning. I let her. She was, after all, the reason any of this was happening. Carol and James walked me down the aisle, a gesture that meant more than I could express. Rachel's parents giving their blessing to her daughter's new mother. It wasn't erasing Rachel. It was honoring her by loving the family she'd left behind. Nathan cried when he saw me. Emma cried because Daddy was crying. I cried because everyone else was crying. It was perfect. Our vows were simple. We promised to love each other, to fight for each other, to be brave when we were scared, to build a life that honored both our past and our future. When the officiant pronounced us married, Emma shouted, "Finally!" and the whole room laughed. We settled into married life with surprising ease. I kept my apartment for a few months, using it as an office, but eventually I moved into Nathan's house. Our house. I learned to navigate his world, attended galas when necessary, but also pushed back when the demands became too much. I advocated for Emma's privacy, for our family time, for boundaries that protected what mattered most. Nathan, in turn, learned to let me in, to share not just the beautiful parts of his life, but the broken parts too. We went to couples therapy, not because things were falling apart, but because we wanted to make sure they never did. Emma thrived. She still missed her first mom, always would. But she also had a mom who braided her hair badly, who helped with homework, who showed up to every school event, who loved her fiercely and imperfectly. On Emma's 7th birthday, she asked if she could call me Mom. Not Claire, who's kind of like a mom, just Mom. "You don't have to," I said, crying. "Whatever you want to call me is perfect." "I want to call you Mom," she said simply, "because that's what you are." So she did. And every time I heard it, my heart broke open all over again in the best possible way. We had challenges, of course, moments when the scrutiny got too intense, when Nathan's work demanded too much, when I struggled with the constant awareness of being watched. But we faced them together. We fought for our family. We protected what mattered. And slowly, incrementally, we built a life. Not perfect, not without scars, but ours. Completely, beautifully ours. I think about that night often. Christmas Eve, 3 years ago now. The disastrous blind date. The piano playing in the corner. The little girl who looked at a stranger and saw a mother. If you'd told me then where I'd end up, I wouldn't have believed you. I was too broken, too scared, too convinced that I was better off alone. But Emma saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. She saw possibility, hope, a future worth reaching for even when it terrified me. Love. I've learned isn't about finding someone who fits perfectly into your life. It's about finding people worth reshaping your life for, worth fighting for, worth being brave for. Nathan's world is still big and complicated. We still deal with scrutiny, with pressure, with the challenges that come with his wealth and prominence. But we also have Sunday morning pancakes and bedtime stories and Emma's terrible knock-knock jokes. We have quiet moments and loud laughter and the deep, abiding peace of being exactly where we are supposed to be. I'm not the same person I was that Christmas Eve. That woman was so afraid of being hurt that she'd forgotten how to hope. She'd built walls so high she couldn't see the sky. She'd convinced herself that safety was better than love. But Emma's question changed everything. 6 words that broke down every wall I'd built. 6 words that made me brave enough to try. 6 words that gave me a family when I'd given up on ever having one. Can you be my new mom? The answer was always yes. I just had to be brave enough to say it. Sometimes I think about Derek, the blind date who walked away. I should probably thank him. If he'd stayed, if he'd given me a chance, I might never have been sitting alone at that table. Never heard the piano. Never met Emma and Nathan. Never found my family. Life has a funny way of working out. The worst moments lead to the best ones. The heartbreak makes room for the healing. The fear makes the courage worth it. I'm not saying it's easy. There are still hard days. Days when I feel inadequate. Days when the pressure gets to me. Days when I wonder if I'm doing this whole mom thing right. But then Emma comes home from school and runs to me first, shouting about her day. Or Nathan looks at me across the dinner table with such love in his eyes. Or I catch a glimpse of the 3 of us in a mirror, A family imperfect and real and beautiful. And I remember why I said yes. Why I'll keep saying yes. Every single day. For the rest of my life. Because love isn't about being fearless. It's about being afraid and choosing love anyway. It's about taking the hand of a little girl who asks the impossible and saying yes. Yes, I'll try. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll be your family. That's what Emma taught me. That bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's walking through the fear to get to something worth having. Something worth fighting for. Something worth every scared, uncertain, beautiful moment. We're a family now. Born from grief and hope, and a question asked by a 5-year-old with more wisdom than any of us. A family built on second chances and brave choices and love that refuses to give up. And if you asked me now, if you asked me if it was worth it, the fear, the struggle, the constant work of choosing love over safety, I'd tell you this: every single moment was worth it. Every tear, every doubt, every terrifying step forward, because they led me here, to this family, to this life, to this love. And I wouldn't change a single thing. If you're listening to this story and you recognize yourself in it, if you're afraid of getting hurt, of trying again, of reaching for something that feels too good to be true, I want you to know something. You're allowed to be scared. Fear is normal. It's human. It's proof that you've been hurt before and you're smart enough to want to protect yourself. But don't let fear be the only voice in your head. Don't let it convince you that safety is better than love. That alone is better than hurt. That walls are better than bridges. Because somewhere out there might be a person or two people who need you as much as you need them. Who see you the way Emma saw me. Who believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. And they're worth the risk. Worth the fear. Worth every brave, terrified step forward. If this story resonated with you, if you believe in second chances, and found families and love that shows up when you least expect it, I'd love for you to share it. Tell someone who needs to hear that it's okay to try again. That healing is possible. That happy endings exist even after heartbreak. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about real people finding real love in unexpected places, subscribe to this channel. Hit the notification bell, because there are so many more stories to tell, so many more reasons to believe in hope. Thank you for listening to mine. Thank you for letting me share this journey with you. And remember, sometimes the worst night of your life is just the beginning of the best chapter. Sometimes a little girl's impossible question is exactly the answer you've been searching for. Sometimes all you have to do is be brave enough to say yes.